The Percy Jackson TV series on Disney Plus has finally released the first 3 episodes of the show. In this video, I'll give my thoughts and opinions on these episodes, but before that, spoiler warning, because I'll be talking about a lot of aspects of the show so far. With that, let's get started. To start this review, I'll be dividing the video into things that I liked and the things that I didn't like. Let's start positively and go with the things that I really liked about the show. The first thing I liked was how the first episode started with the first ever lines in the first book of the Riordan verse. I literally cried just hearing Walker Scobell, or Percy's actor, say those lines word for word from the book. It was amazing. And speaking of Walker as Percy, I'm going to straight up say that Walker Scobell is Percy Jackson with no doubt. Rick nailed it with the casting here because Walker absolutely feels like the Percy Jackson I read about in the books. He's age appropriate, he has the right scenes that Percy has in the books, he even has the signature Percy sass and sarcasm that we especially saw in this part of the first episode. I can't play the clip because of a copyright issue, but the main thing is Sally telling Percy that Percy's dad was not a man, but a god. Percy then says, "You fell in love with God? Like Jesus?" I'm sorry, but I can't. That's such a Percy comment that was not from the books, but it's just so in character. We also saw the sass again in the next episode when Mr. D called Percy by the infamous nickname of Peter Johnson. Grover reiterates Percy's name to Mr. D, and Mr. D tells Grover that he already heard Percy say it the first time. Percy then gives him this look and says, "But did you?" Like, Walker nailed those sarcastic moments so much that it makes me so happy. Aside from these hilarious moments, Walker absolutely nailed the emotional parts as well from the show. We see him mourn Sally Jackson's death, and even see him fight the freaking Minotaur. Like, I thought the fight would be a bit different because Percy had his sword in the TV show version, but I was surprised that it happened just like the book version. Percy manages to rip out the horn and kill the Minotaur with it exactly like the book. We also see Percy get manipulated by Medusa in the 3rd episode, which I found interesting, because this scene never really happened. I like the addition though, because it sort of builds up the line of the prophecy that mentioned, "You shall be betrayed by someone who calls you a friend." We even get this moment of Percy breaking down to admit that he felt like either Grover or Annabeth were gonna betray him in the future, which is something Percy in the book did voice out, but in the book version, he didn't have any basis for this. In the show though, Grover had lied and kept secrets from Percy multiple times, and Annabeth so far is a bit of a stranger to him, so it sort of makes sense that Percy would try suspecting either of them, and it's a great addition that I didn't really expect. A bit random, and I guess it's just the Percivette shipper inside me, but I could sort of see that this episode will start up Percy and Annabeth bonding together. By the end of a huge argument that the trio had, Grover was able to point out how similar Percy and Annabeth are. Both are loyal to their mothers, and interesting enough, both have been given offers by monsters to sacrifice other people to benefit from it. Medusa offered to help Percy save his mother if he betrayed Annabeth and Grover, and Percy denied it. Annabeth was also given an offer by Alecto to give Percy up so that she'd be safe, but she also denied it. Also, Annabeth and Percy's lines in this scene were so good. Annabeth admits what Alecto offered her, and Percy asks her, "What did you say?" Annabeth replies, "I killed her sister." I can't express it, but Annabeth's reply is such an Annabeth line, and we'll talk about Annabeth more later, but right now let's just go back to the scene. And then, Percy admits what Medusa told him, and Annabeth asks the same question of "What did you say?" Percy gestures to Medusa's chopped head and said, "I cut her head off." Like, the two of them are already twinning, and they have this unresolved trauma that they bond over. The show is tying them together, and I'm really seeing it. Another character I was pleasantly surprised by was Luke Castellan and his actor Charlie Bushnell. Like Walker, Charlie also nailed his character so well. I cried when I saw that Luke had a signature scar that was described in the book, and it looks incredible. Luke and Percy bond a lot in the 2nd episode, and I could not handle the fact that Luke was also the one who introduced us to Annabeth, considering what Luke does in the future episodes. Also, that line that he says to Percy when they're talking about capture the flag was so... I can't describe it. Percy asks Luke which side Luke was on during capture the flag, and Luke says he's on Annabeth's side. Luke's exact words were, "Oh, hers. Always. She's my little sister." I felt touched by this line, but at the same time, my mind flashed back as to what I read in The Last Olympian, when Annabeth finally confronts Luke and tells him the infamous line of "Family Luke, you promised." Like, this show is already giving us a build-up on how close Luke and Annabeth were and how devastating their relationship would be after this book. From there, I was surprised that Luke actually spilled what happened to him, Annabeth, and Thalia. Like I said earlier, the show is really setting up what's going to happen in the future, and I like this foreshadowing. Another thing that made me happy about Luke's character was that we got to see the flying shoes, and it looks incredible. I also liked how they made it clear that Percy couldn't use the shoes because of Zeus, because that was not followed at all in the Peter Johnson movies. The next thing I liked was how they gave more to Sally Jackson's character. Sally manages to stand up to Gabe in the first episode, which some fans found controversial because Sally wasn't like that in the book, but I honestly liked the change and I didn't really mind it. I also liked her bond with Percy, like them joking around and being close with each other, because it's just so book accurate. We also got the blue food cameo, which I was so happy to see. I also liked how Sally was more of a fighter in this show, as seen when she tried to fight the Minotaur to save Percy and Grover. Sally is quite a strong character in the books too, but she wasn't able to fight like this, mainly because there was no time to do it in the book version. But adding this was honestly a good choice on the filmmaker's part, because it makes Sally's death a bit more impactful. Another thing I liked about the show was Leah Sava Jeffries as Annabeth Chase. If you've been on my channel, then you'd know that I constantly defended Rick's choice of Leah as Annabeth, even though I was shocked that they didn't decide to cast a blonde actress for Annabeth. I decided to trust Rick's choice of Leah and watch the show instead, and I was not left disappointed. Leah's personality is pretty much Annabeth Chase. The added detail that Annabeth was stalking Percy was something that I didn't expect, but it honestly adds up, because Annabeth was known to investigate every new kid in camp to figure out if they could be the half-blood of the Great Prophecy. I also liked how Annabeth figured out Percy was the son of Poseidon by witnessing the bathroom scene with Clarice, and the fact that she literally shoved him into the water to test her theory. Like, that was hilarious. We get more of her character in episode 3, and now that I've watched it, I have to say, Leah is Annabeth Chase. The way she speaks and the way she carries herself absolutely screams the Annabeth that I read about. A moment I liked in the third episode especially was when she snapped at Percy when Percy was being sarcastic about Thalia being turned into a pine tree. Because in the book, Annabeth was defensive about her past and is really sensitive about it. So seeing Leah react that way was so Annabeth coded. Aside from this, I also felt Annabeth's character when it was established that she was the leader, and Percy questions this. Grover then says, "Who do you think would be in charge?" Like, I just love the dynamic they're establishing here, because it's true. Annabeth takes control and strategizes for the group all the time. Another Annabeth moment I love is when she already deduced that the Furies were already following him, and she even confronts Mrs. Dodds in the bus. I like this part especially because it shows Annabeth's wit and battle instincts, which are traits she inherited from her mother Athena. Also, I have to mention that when she threw that dagger to kill the Fury, I was so happy that they kept the description of the knife Annabeth had. It was easily recognizable as the very dagger that Luke gave Annabeth all those years ago when they first met. That knife was also a part of the Great Prophecy, through the line, "Cursed blade shall reap." The cursed blade is that knife because it represents Luke's promise that he, Thalia, and Annabeth would be a family, which he broke later on. Luke's broken promise cursed the knife, and that very knife would be used by Luke in the future to kill himself. Though it's a small moment in the show, it made me so happy. Overall though, I'm liking what I see for Annabeth in the show. And now, let's go to the things that I didn't really like. First is what they did to Grover's character, and I honestly feel like it's because of how he's written and not because of the actor or Aryan Simhadri. Like, I think Aryan is a good actor because he was able to show Grover's personality of being this kind, loyal, down-to-earth, and insecure friend, but the main thing that ticked me off in this show was how they decided to make Grover into a snitch character. Grover basically got Percy expelled by saying that Percy did hurt Nancy in the fountain incident, and he even went against both Chiron and Mr. D to say that Sally Jackson was still alive. Like, Grover being a snitch was probably the last thing I expected them to do, and I honestly got hurt by it. Aside from this though, Grover's character wasn't fully ruined. They made a few additions to his character, like Grover has this mother figure tree nymph named Helena in this scene. To be honest, I thought for a second there that was actually Grover's tree nymph girlfriend Juniper, And I had to snap myself out of it because the tree nymph in this scene, or Helena, looked like a full-on adult and not someone around Grover's age at all. Though I didn't like what they did to Grover in the first episode of being a snitch, he did improve in the third episode, and he felt more like Grover. Through that consensus song and those moments that Grover was trying to avoid conflict every time Percy and Annabeth argued was so Grover-coded that I just loved it. Something that the show added more to was a moment when Grover was mourning his uncle Ferdinand, who got turned to stone by Medusa. That was a sweet moment that I liked, mainly because Grover wasn't able to fully process his uncle's death in the book. Another thing I felt iffy about was how they executed the Ms. Dodds fight scene. Ms. Dodds attacked Percy in a public area, and Percy didn't even fight her. He literally got thrown down and accidentally opened his sword. This was honestly disappointing to me, because in the book, the fight was so much more epic than just that. Percy destroyed Ms. Dodds' riptide and killed her in the book version. That was Percy's first encounter with a monster, and he absolutely destroyed Mrs. Dodds with no training whatsoever. I don't know, this is one of Percy's most epic moments, and I wonder why they decided to diminish it to just Percy opening a sword accidentally. It just diminishes his strength as a demigod, really. The last thing I wasn't a fan of was whenever they cut to black, because every time they did that, I thought the episode just lagged or it wasn't working. It was a bit annoying, though I sort of get it, as it signifies the end of each chapter. I mean, it's not that bad, but I just wish they cut it off. By the end of all the episodes, though, I would say it was a great start to an amazing series. The book is being followed pretty closely, and I'm really excited for what Rick has in store for all of us. So how about you? What do you think of these episodes so far? Let me know in the comments down below.